No, and that's safe for me. I would resolve the best. Once I did that, I
Yeah. So at some point, is there
handheld?
handheld?
Okay.
At some point, when some questions come, remember to ask. We didn't do that last time. I kept asking on chat to make sure they didn't want to ask questions, and none of them did.
Wave and flag me down and make sure that, just jump up and down and do this or whatever. It's just, but yeah,
Most of them, I'll chat with them and we'll say raise your hand if you want to ask questions. But, maybe if they hear it from you guys.
oh, right, okay, when they hear it at home, now's the time to ask questions. Okay. All right, good. Now, on and off buttons or?
No, they're always on and.
You got it. Okay, so it's always on. Okay, and they're both,
They're actually on right now.
the day before that. Debbie told me she was. She had a good time. So you're gonna get part of the presentation tonight? They're both on. Okay, great.
So I think
one will go out.
you guys can share one. I'll grab one. And
Looks like
time for questions.
Yeah, so the other one, yeah, you'll hand it around all right. Hi, good evening. If everybody can make their way to a seat, we'll get started here. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I think you'll be glad you did. We got a lot of exciting and great news to share with you tonight. And we welcome those that are at home watching virtually from home. So thanks for coming out tonight. It's good to see you, everybody. Before we get started, I'll make a couple of quick introductions. We've got some folks here from both the county staff and the schools. Maybe we'll start with the schools. We have the school board chair, Karen Horn. Where's Karen? There she is. Welcome. We've got the vice chair, Mike Newman. There he is. Mike's with us. Let's see. And then I think we've got JD Wright from District 5. JD, thanks for coming out tonight. And then, of course, we've got our district superintendent of schools, Dr. Raley. Thanks for coming out tonight. From the county side, we've got the chair of the Board of Supervisors here, Mr. John Lumpkins. Thank you for coming out tonight, John. We've got from District 1, Neil Spoonhour, Supervisor. 2, District 2, Neil Spoonhour. Let's see, and then we've got Don Sharp from District 4, the local favorite here. We're in District 4 now. Don, thanks for coming out. Monacan Soil and Water, Jonathan Lyle is with us tonight. So water and soil and water is in the house. All right, great. And then, of course, we have our interim county administrator, Mr. Manuel Alvarez, better known as a former supervisor of Board of Supervisors member. Our fire chief, Eddie Ferguson, is here. Chief, thanks for coming out. Let's see. Anybody I miss? Raise your hand. Mike East, representing the Sheriff's Department. Thanks for coming out tonight, Mike. Anybody else I miss? Planning Commission is with us. Thank you for coming out tonight, Mr. Patuck. Ms. Hunter, have I introduced everybody that's here? Anyway, let's move on into the program here so we can somewhat stay on schedule. Again, thanks for coming out tonight. The agenda for tonight, what you're going to hear about is a little bit about our financial situation and update. The bond referendum, if you've already voted, you've noticed there's a bond referendum that'll be voted on November 2nd ballot. Broadband expansion, you'll hear an update on broadband expansion efforts within the county. Redistricting, as you all know, the decennial, every 10 years, there's a census done. And the year after that, they do redistricting of the political districts. And that'll be, we'll give you an update on that as well. Economic development, there's a lot of economic development going on in the county. You hear about that. Transportation projects that are going on in the county, you'll hear a little bit about that too. And let's see. And then if you'd like to get more involved or provide some feedback, we've got a number of different avenues for citizen engagement. And we'll give you a list of how to contact the county if you have any input you'd like to share with us. The first thing we're going to talk about is the financial update. We're going to talk numbers here a little bit early on so that in case you drift off and daydream, you've had the numbers up front. Before I get into the financials, you know, I always like to start out with a little bit of sense of humor here. There was a TV show on the other day, and they had a contestant and they had a moderator, and one of the questions they asked was, who's the third president of the United States? Who was the third president? Now, you all know who the third president was, but as the clock was ticking down, the person just couldn't come up with the answer. Finally, time ran out, and the person said, I was almost there. I almost had it. And they said, well, how come you didn't get it? He goes, well, I started out with the $1 bill. The first president was George Washington. Then I went to the $2 bill, and that was Thomas Jefferson. And I couldn't figure out who's on the $3 bill. Yeah, that was the joke. Now, some of you are going, well, that's not right, because Thomas Jefferson wasn't the second president. You guys are all thinking that, right? Because he was the third president. But anyway, that was what, so I'm a little worried about people's knowledge of history these days, but that's where that goes. Now, I'll give you another story on history. In fact, instead of giving you a presentation tonight, what I'm gonna do is just tell you a little bit of a story about Goochland County. And I was first elected about 10 years ago. And when I was first elected, you say, yay, I'm elected, now what do I do? And I quickly learned that there was a number of different financial challenges that the county was facing. One of them was the recently issued, well, I shouldn't say recently, back in 2002, the county issued the Tuckahoe Creek Service District debt, and that was about $62 million. And 10 years ago, that debt was in trouble. We couldn't make the payments, and we were facing pressure to raise taxes to make those payments. So that was a $60 million problem. And then the infrastructure needs, we had aging infrastructure in Goochland County. So we needed a new elementary school to replace one of our current ones that was aging out. That was about $40 million. We were looking at the courthouse, which was aging as well. And I think somebody told me that we ought to build a new courthouse about every 200 to 300 years. And I think we were running out of that 200 years. So it was time for a new courthouse. And that was about $30 million plus or minus. And then, of course, we needed 1 or 2 more fire stations with the growth in the county, and that's another $10 million. So there's about $80 million of infrastructure needs that we need to catch up on. And then broadband was not ubiquitous throughout the county. It was only concentrated in certain areas. So folks wanted broadband throughout the county. We got an estimate on that, and that was between $20 and $25 million. So if you total up those numbers, you get about $165 million, and our annual budget at the time was about 50. So you can see we had about 3 years worth of entire annual budget where we were trying to wrestle with either existing debt that was in trouble or borrowing new debt or what have you. And at that point, I had to question why did I run for office if we're looking at a $160 million hole? How are we going to dig out of this thing? And so I'm going to roll forward and say, well, what did we do during the last 10 years to address those towering financial needs? And let's take them one at a time in order, I guess. The first thing was the Tuckahoe Creek Service District debt, and that was about $62 million. What we did was we did 2 debt restructurings, one in 2012 and one in 2020. Those 2 debt restructurings and refinancing saved the county tens of millions of dollars, but more importantly, took all the pressure off the tax increase to pay the debt back. So that tax, the ad valorem tax of 32 cents has been unchanged for the last 10 years. And we've been servicing that debt just fine. And that debt actually today is in great shape. So we don't have to worry about that at all. So that was the $60 million change. The $80 million worth of infrastructure projects, we during the last 10 years, we've actually paid down the high school and middle school debt that was incurred about 20 years ago. And that's virtually paid off now with just a few dollars left to go. So paying that debt down created some unused capacity for us. And at the time, 10 years ago, we didn't have a credit rating. And so we couldn't issue debt out in the marketplace to fund those capital projects. We didn't have access to the capital markets because we weren't rated. So during the last 10 years, we worked on getting a credit rating. And I went up to New York City in 2015 and 2018. And the county received a AAA credit rating in 2015 from S&P and in 2018 from Moody's. And then in 2021, just a couple of weeks ago, we met with Fitch, the third major rating agency, and pled our case. And we actually just found out a couple of days ago that we were awarded the AAA from Fitch as well. So we now have what they call the coveted triple. There's only about 1% of the counties in the country that have that triple. We're the highest rated county in the country. Now they call it a triple. I call it a home run. But so we've got the credit rating. Now we have direct access to the capital markets to fund these programs. So as you saw on November 2nd or on the ballot, if you voted the bond referendum, that would give if it passes, would give us permission to use general obligation bonds as a way to finance those capital projects. And we do now with the triple have the direct access to the capital markets. And if you looked at interest rates recently, they are very, very low. And we will get the lowest interest rate available because of our credit rating. So we now have an ability or a method to go ahead and do that. And if that referendum passes, and if we fund those $80 million worth of projects, it's actually closer to $100 million worth of projects, we don't project any tax increase either. So that's the way we're going to address those infrastructure needs. The last one, broadband. Broadband, as I mentioned, was not ubiquitous throughout the county. It was just spotty coverage. We recently signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with a collection of parties, about a half a dozen different groups got together. And the net result is we will, within about a 2-year time frame, have broadband coverage throughout the entire county. And the folks that don't have it now, the anticipation is that they'll have fiber wired to the home. So it won't be a wireless solution. It'll be fiber wired to the home, very high speed. And again, it's about a $25 million project. Of that, about 17 million is coming from a private company in the private sector. And about 4 million or so, plus or minus, is coming from the state and federal grant money. And the balance, about 4 million, a little less than that, is going to be local money, but it's going to be grant money that the county received from outside the county. So net, there won't be any local tax dollars going, and we'll have broadband throughout the entire county. So at the end of the day, the $165 million worth of financial problems and infrastructure needs are all going to be met with no tax increase. We're running a balanced budget, actually a budget surplus these days. We have very, very strong reserves, rainy day reserves, and these infrastructure needs will be addressed. So that concludes my financial update on where we stand. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our interim county administrator at this point, and he's going to walk us through the balance of the agenda. Mandy, would you like to come up?
Thank you, Ken. Ken wasn't totally honest with you. When he ran, he knew about the $165 million hole. So he likes the challenge. And we're really glad that he did it, because we have solved that problem. But so one of the questions we got as we started talking about the referendum was, can Gushland County afford this referendum? Ken told you why we can. And so when you vote, how many of you have already voted? Almost everybody. Those of you who have not voted, when you get to the poll, there will be 2 questions on the ballot. One is for school projects of $60 million, and another one, $36 million for the courthouse and the fire station that Mr. Peterson mentioned. So the school projects are a new elementary school, and Dr. Raley will give you a little more information on that. I think you're going to see you've gotten a really good financial story, We're going to tell you a little more about where we are today with development. And in the end, I think Dr. Rayleigh is going to give you an even better story about the schools. So we have a new elementary school in the plans, some expansions to the high school, middle school complex, and Bulldog Way and parking lot improvements. If you have children in the school and you go in there in the morning to drop off or pick up, the traffic issue is huge. And so this accounts for, there's some money in the referendum to correct those problems, turn lanes, widening, and so on. For the county, as you heard from Mr. Peterson, we have the new courthouse coming up and a new West Creek Fire Station. Today, and our chief is back there if you want to ask him specific questions later. Companies 1 and 3 are covering a high number of calls in the east end of the county, and they're not able to move to cover any areas in towards the central and west of Goochland. So this fire station, the plan right now is to have it at Tuckahoe Creek Parkway and Hockett Road, and it'll really help cover this area. We have a lot of development out there, as you will see. And so these are important projects for us. And as Mr. Peterson mentioned, there is no tax increase needed for these projects. So those questions on the referendum, if you vote yes on those questions, we can actually do the project by issuing general obligation bonds. And it'll be a lot less expensive for us, less fees. There are a lot of fees associated with borrowing from the bank, or we could wait a long time to raise enough money to pay cash. We've paid cash for a lot of things over the last few years from surplus at the end of the year. But that would take a long time to build a $30, $40 million school and courthouse, fire station. So I think the best way typically for municipal projects, capital projects, is general obligation bonds. So the bond questions are not asking you to approve the projects. Those projects came up to the top of our capital improvement plans years ago. We need to do them. So the question really is about how do you finance them? Can we issue general obligation bonds, which we now can because of our AAA rating, or do we go borrow somewhere else? If the answer is no, then obviously we have to go borrow somewhere else. It'll take longer and it'll cost us a little more money. So we have a website, it's GVA Bonds 2021 at goochlandva.us. If you have more questions about the referendum or about the bonds, we have frequently asked questions there, or we can answer questions this evening as well. Mr. Peterson mentioned broadband. One of the reasons I actually came on the board was because I was struggling trying to get broadband. And as I started digging, I realized we were not managing that agreement with Comcast very well. I ended up getting on the board, and it was still very difficult to do it. So we now have, and as Mr. Peterson also said, we did a couple of studies. We had some estimates on what it would cost to run. This was going to be basic cable and wireless or WiMAX, which is not a good service, to the home. And it was going to be between $20, $25 million. And we're now going to invest, or private companies are going to invest $25 million. And our cut of that is $3.7 million. And as Mr. Peterson said, that's all coming from ARPA funds, which are the revenue revitalization funds from COVID. So really by the end of 2023, everybody in the county should have access to fiber, which is even better than what I have, which is cable. This was a partnership with Firefly, Dominion Electric, Central Virginia Electric, and Rappahannock Electric. The electric companies are running the fiber on the poles up to a point. From there, it hits the ground, and the underground work will be done by Firefly to the home. So there'll be fiber directly to the home. There might be some folks, and we have looked at this, there might be some folks that are still not connected because they're very far from a main road. There's some folks in my district like that. There's another grant that's coming up that will allow these companies to cover that extra distance. If you haven't filled out, if you don't have broadband and you haven't filled out the survey, make sure you go to our website and the information is there. If you go to our website, you can take the survey and the companies will know that they have a gap, that they have somebody that has no high-speed internet and they can come talk to you once they get there. So this is a kind of a map and I won't go into it too much, but the dark blue, the gray, and the yellow areas are the work being done by CVEC and Firefly through a couple of grants, some federal funding, the RISE project, and the Central Virginia Electric Co-op. These folks in the, oops, the folks in the dark blue either have it already or will have it before the end of the year. These are customers of Central Virginia Electric Co-op. And as Ken said, so there's a $25 million investment and 17 million of that is by private partners. The VATI is a state grant. And then our piece of it, which again came from funds that we received, and then there's another project that's covering the Crozier area, and that's Port 80. And they're providing through Cardwell Road and the Crozier area fiber to the door as well. And it's all part of those costs. Actually, it's a little bit more cost, but again, we got most of that from grants. So the next topic is redistricting. The only thing we have so far on redistricting is we have the raw data. We've loaded it into our GIS system. And we, this is what you're seeing now is the same thing the Board of Supervisors has seen. We have a small team that's going to try to take this data and working with our GIS folks and a software package that we just purchased, we'll divide it. As you can see, there's a big difference in the growth in districts. Districts 4 and 5 have had the majority of the growth. So you can see here, we have about 2,500 people more in those two districts than the rest of the county. So there are going to be some major alignments. And one of the things that I'll point out, those of you who might have noticed last year, we had an issue because at election time, right before election, we found out, we didn't find out, we knew, but the law changed, so we had to cover them. There's an area right here that was disputed between Louisa and Goochland. So the District 2 precinct actually had voters, some voting for John McGuire and some voting for Lee Ware. Right here, it's a few hundred people in this area. Now that area has been incorporated into the census, so that problem has been fixed. And that's a problem that's been around since the 1800s. And we tried to fix it several times, but we couldn't get the census fixed until this year. So the next steps on this, we're going to present to the board on Wednesday the 3rd, sort of what are the things that they would like to see us do, but the citizens will actually see the plans at the same time as the board. Economic development, most of you have seen these places. You might notice them if you live out here in the east end of the county. We have the Sheltering Arms Rehabilitation Hospital that's been open now for a little more than a year. The Residence Inn Hotel, if you drive by there, you'll see that it's full. The parking lot is full all the time. The Tuckahoe Pines Retirement Center is also up and running down on Route 6. We have some new construction. Greenswell Growers, have you seen the big building on Hockett Road? If you can, take a tour before they open. Once they open, it's kind of hard to go in because you have to wear a suit and all these things. But right now you can actually go see it. They're already growing some lettuce in there, and it's an amazing operation. I encourage you to go see it. I think they will give you a tour. W.T. Curtis is building a new facility. Courthouse Creek Cidery in the courthouse area. I don't know if any of you have been there. They've made a lot of expansions and are still trying to work on others. Under construction, we have Avery Point, which is a continuing care facility that'll have about 1,250 seniors. So our population is going to grow a little bit more. Advanced Auto is going here next to the Audi dealer. We have Tommy's Car Wash is also going to be, and here's a picture of the, oops, I keep hitting the button. That's a car wash. This is the Greenswell Growers. You know, you've seen the hotel and the medical facility over on at Creekmore. So Bellevue Gardens medical offices, they're going to go right in front of Bellevue Gardens on 250. And the Oak Hill Complex Apartments, this right here, that'll go on Route 6 by 288. So there's a lot of new development going on, new business development, which is really good for us. Dollar General, there's two right now. The one can go by right in the Haydensville area. Another one is in the planning stages, and that's going to be in the George's Tavern area of the county. Projects, nothing major out here, but in the central part of the county, you might know that we have a planned roundabout at 522 and Fairgrounds Road, where you go into 522 on Fairgrounds. There's a roundabout plan for there, and that's going to go into advertisement early next year. And then once that's done, we have plans to connect that intersection there all the way to Route 6. That'll alleviate a lot of the turns at that intersection. And it'll give a connection directly to, there are a lot of folks that come from the west end of the county. They come down, they have to make a left and make a right to go home. So this will alleviate that. And we also have in this area of the county, we have a study ongoing or about to start to look at another interchange of 288 right into West Creek. And it'll be near the Broad Street interchange. But it'll take traffic off of that 250 exit on 288. I think this will really be great if we can make it happen. We're also looking for funding. If you ever get off at the Oilville exit at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, traffic sometimes backs up all the way to the rest area, and we're trying to alleviate that problem. And then at the Rockville exit, VDOT has planned a divergent diamond, which is a kind of a configuration that allows you to use the one bridge, and basically the traffic moves in the opposite direction for some time in order to get across the bridge. So that's pretty much it. We have general election. Most of you have already voted. If you haven't voted, you can come to the county administration building in the Parks and Rec area is where our early voting is. We have some Sunday, the 24th will be a day, Sunday voting from 12 to 4 p.m. And so you can leave church and go and vote. So that's a good transition. And we'll be open on the 30th as well and the 23rd. Weekdays, 8:30 to 4:30. And we also have on the 30th, we have the Goochland Fall Festival. So you can come to the Fall Festival and then vote right there in the same area. So as Mr. Peterson mentioned, we have several ways that you can connect with us. On our website, we have forms if you want to participate on a committee, or if you want to reach any one of us, of course, you can do it through the website. My card's on the table outside if you need anything while I'm here. So just be sure to take one. Our board of supervisors meeting happen the first Tuesday of every month, except this coming month, because election day is on Tuesday, so our meeting will be on the 3rd, on Wednesday. And that's it. The town hall slides are already posted, Paul. Yep, the town hall slides are posted. So if you want to see any of these slides, just go to our website and you can see it all. Any questions before I turn it over to Dr. Rayleigh? Mr. Pendergrass.
And we were all excited because they were going to change it a little bit so that we could get across there safer. And basically, when you come off of River Road, you're at an angle and you can't see down Patterson Avenue.
Right.
But it was a VDOT project, so they didn't do anything. All they did was made a little storage. You're still at an angle. They were supposed to square that intersection up so you could safely see down Patterson Avenue. Why wasn't it done the way they originally planned? At the last minute, somebody said, oops.
Well,
We're VDOT, let's change it.
Sandy Warwick says that's VDOT's motto is oops. So
But
she's made that.
it didn't, excuse me.
Yeah.
They spent all this money. It didn't correct anything.
Let me see if Joanne, do you know the answer? Okay, we'll follow up with you shortly.
I've talked to Marshall about it. He's going, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was work going on there and the work was planned since Benedictine was approved, so.
Well, they got
Not
money,
sure what
they got money from Benedictine to make this improvement.
Yeah.
But it
So-
wasn't money well
So
spent.
we'll check on the improvement and we'll check to see if
Okay,
the money's still
thank you.
there.
And I'll be talking.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh.
And so I'm in Parkside Village, so a lot of our residents are retired and the tax is based on our property values. And we all know what happened to property values this year. Is there any consideration being given on adjusting what we might owe based on our property values? Because that's really going to hit our community hard. And also in terms of development and their contribution to this tax, do you see that this bond will be paid off any earlier so that we can get out from under it? Because our community really feels a burden.
Well, Mr. Peterson can probably handle this better, but the plan is to finish paying that off. Our current plan is to finish paying it off by 2032, I think, 2032. But I'll let Mr. Peterson tell you the story.
Sure. So the question was the ad valorem tax, how much is it? Why do you pay it? And what's going to happen to it in the future? The story I told about 10 years ago when I first started out, an outside financial firm was brought in to say, what happens to that ad valorem tax if we don't do anything? If we're not able to restructure it, what happens to that tax? And because of the way the bonds are designed, the structure of the bonds, there's actually an escalation in the debt service payment every year. At the time, it was running about $300,000 a year. Every year was an increase in the debt service payment. So if the property values didn't go up at all, you'd have to raise that 32-cent rate higher to be able to meet that escalating payment. That was the challenge we were facing. Now, had we done nothing, we did restructure the debt twice. Had we done nothing today, that 32-cent ad valorem would be about 65 cents. And that's in addition to the 53 for your real estate. That would be over $1.30. We just decided that just couldn't happen. Well, shouldn't happen, although it was already baked in when they issued the bonds 10 years before I got there. So what we did set out to do is that we have to do something about that. We can't let that 32 go to 65. Because we restructured it twice, and because, as you point out, Goochland is a desirable place to live and businesses and people have been moving in, driving up prices, that's allowed the escalation in the debt service to be paid for by the increase in assessed value in the district as opposed to changing the rate. Now, the policies that we've pursued in Goochland have made Goochland a very attractive place to live, work, and play, and folks are moving in and driving those prices up. I guess we could pursue policies that drive prices down of your houses, but we didn't want to do that. So, but the good news is that the increase in assessed values had allowed us to leave that flat and taken the pressure off of increasing that rate. So I know it's not a great news, but the good news is that rate hasn't gone up. Now, I understand the assessed values are going up, but that's helping us meet those increased debt service payments. So does that answer your question at all, or?
It does. It's very helpful, but I think this year, in terms of our property values, it's more than just the fact that Goochland's a desirable place to live, because we do consider it very much so, coming from another county. It's supply chain issues. It's a lot of things that where I feel this year, it's like really going to be a burden, the fact that that tax is based on our property values.
Yeah. We'll find out very shortly from the county assessor what's going to happen to prices in the coming year. We know inflation is, around everywhere you look. And we've got $2 generals coming. I figure there'll be a $1.50 general by the time they get here. But inflation is around and prices are drifting higher. And again, part of that is required. But the cycle, by the way, we reassess, every year. Some counties, some do it every 2 years, 5 years. We do it every year to make sure that it's close to the market value. And the process for that is around now, November, December, the assessor will go out and start to collect the data based on comparables and repricing and whatnot. And then they'll come to the board in February, I believe it is, each year, and let us know, here's the anticipated increase. That's going to be our first look at what's going to happen to prices for the coming year. And that's about February is very early in the process for us to develop the budget for the coming year, which is due by 6/30. We typically approve the budget in April. So January, February, March, we get information on assessed values. We start to develop a budget around those values. If values drop by 5%, we have to put a budget around that. If they go up, then we got to figure out what to do with that. And we're hopeful that the assessed value will increase at the amount of the debt service, that those will go hand in hand. So we won't have to change that 32 cent. We haven't changed it in 10 years and we really would prefer not to. And we're hopeful that that assessment will track the assessment, the increase in debt service.
Okay, because communities like ours, we're 55 plus, and that means we don't use any of the schools or anything like that. And, but we do pay taxes that support schools, which is greatly important. But it seems that only communities such as ours who are on the system are shouldering the ad valorem. And with so many of our residents being retired, perhaps that's something you all should think about.
Sure. Well, we actually did think about who should pay that debt back. And I guess we settled in on the folks that have the benefit of the water and sewer, that the
Well, and
public
that's
that comes with it.
understandable, but you see my analogy that we do support the school systems, even though we don't use the schools, we don't have children who are, so.
The school system, I guess that doesn't come out of the ad valorem, obviously. That comes out of the
No,
53 cent
right,
real estate.
Exactly.
And the good news there is we've been able to hold that 53 flat for 10 years as well, even with the increase in growth and the number of rooftops, in part because there are a fair number of 55 and over that move in, and it doesn't put pressure on the school portion of that 53. So the good news again is we've been able to hold the 53 flat and the 32 flat.
And look, we're willing to pay our share, but just as you all make your decisions, these are
Yes, ma'am.
comments that I've heard in my community and thought you should be aware of.
We don't have any say on the assessment. The assessments are done by the county assessor. And by law, we cannot have any influence over what happens. So the assessment balance does, we live with. We cannot tell them we don't increase it this year.
I
But I-
understand that. but-
Yeah, I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying. What you're saying is that, the ad valorem tax goes up with the price of your home. And of course it needs to be able to service the debt, the 53. But what we're trying to do, and look, I hear what you're saying, which is financially, our taxes, are an important part of our budget for our family around the kitchen table. So what we've undertaken is to do everything we can to keep those rates low and flat and stable. Of course, the 53, as you know, we could raise that 53 by 25% and still be the lowest in the entire region. Now, we haven't done that. We don't want to do that. And we haven't done that. And we're trying to, so we're quite a bit lower than the surrounding counties. They're in the 90 cent range versus the 53. So keeping that gap and that delta and those low stable taxes is, one of the, watchwords around Goochland County, which is to be fiscally responsible, lower the burden, level the burden out, and don't have volatility and don't have increases. So that's
And
what
the
we're trying to
rating
do.
speaks volumes, so I appreciate that.
But I appreciate your comment, and we'll definitely keep that in mind as we go through the budget season. So thank you.
Any other questions? Did you have a question?
I've got a quick question about broadband. In my Crozier residence, which I've sold since, we each paid $1,000 to have Port 80 come down and run it down Hunter's Woods. Were they already funded?
No, they were not. That $1,000 was your match for the funding.
Okay,
They ran the fiber all the way from there all the way to the county. And so they were just charging it's actually a lot less than what would normally cost. But yeah, no, they didn't have extra money.
fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Moore,
Broadband, another broadband, what is going to be the actual monthly fee? I mean, I can have Comcast if I could afford it, but, $100 a month is not unreasonable
Well,
for
yeah, and what you
District-
pay,
District 4.
most people that get Comcast have cable, so they also have television and so on. With Firefly, you will be paying for the internet. And then
Only
you
the
can
internet.
you can stream if you want to pay for another service, but you'll have your internet. You can do that through Comcast as well, but they're still expensive. I think the rates are 49. I don't think we had them on the slide, did we?
For
49,
49.99.
79, and 99 for gig speeds.
So it's with Firefly, it's $49.99 for about 100 meg, and it's about $80-$90 for a gig.
Right.
Okay.
So it is better, but it's just internet, no cable programming.
That's fine. I don't.
Any
need
other
cable.
questions?
All right.
Any other questions? No questions? Dr. Rayleigh, you want to, oh, Mike? So now you're going to hear some even more good news.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Good evening. I'm Mike Newman, Vice Chair of the School Board. Oh, thanks. And happy to be here. And you are going to hear some good news tonight. A moment ago, Mr. Peterson said Goochland's come to be a place where people like to live, work, and play. They like to learn here too. And our schools have been recognized as the greatest in the Richmond area, the strongest teaching going on in our schools. And we're excited about that. I had the privilege of serving as principal of the high school for 4 years, about 6 years ago. It was the best job of my 40-year career, being a part of Goochland Schools. And now school board, despite outside influences that affect all of us, it's been a challenging time on the board, but we have worked hard with our superintendent, our teachers and staff to do the best job to make everything the best it can be for our kids and to help them reach their very best. So leading our effort, our superintendent, Dr. Rayleigh, want to introduce him.
Thank you, sir. Well, good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you, and I'm going to come down here. I don't know, it just kind of feels weird standing up there. But anyway, appreciate your time. And as Mr. Newman said, you can be really proud of what your public schools have been doing. And so we want to celebrate some of that this evening. You know, our county is strong in so many ways. And so we heard some of the financial celebrations and the great things that are happening just in a lot of things across our community. And so we should be proud to be Goochland County residents because our community is so strong and successful. And so I want to celebrate some of our public schools. As Mr. Newman said, we are the best. We are number one. And we've been rated by a third party, niche.com, as the number one school division in the Richmond metro region, not just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but now 4 years in a row. And so it's extremely significant because oftentimes rural school divisions, you know, they don't have some of the same opportunities and resources across the Commonwealth as some of the big school divisions do, but we are small and mighty And there is nothing that our students miss by being a part of this school division. We have access to 2 governor schools. Our students have the opportunity to graduate with an associate's degree before they graduate from high school. We have advanced placement classes. We have amazing programs. Our families are supportive. They're proud of what we're doing, hence the rating why we are number 1 in the region. And in addition to that, that rating to be number 1 doesn't happen. It comes on the backs of all of our employees, our bus drivers, our custodians, our nurses, our support professionals, everybody that does the work of our school division. But what happens day to day in that classroom are the talented teachers who are doing amazing work for kids. And our professionals have been rated as the number 1 teachers in this metro region. And so extremely proud of everything that our school division is doing. So the 53 cents on the 100 that you're investing in public education is returning dividends time and time again with very well-educated young men and women who are fully prepared for success long after high school. Another point of celebration that you may or may not know is that students with disabilities in our school division are performing extremely well. And our staff who support them are recognized for their efforts from a compliance standpoint. As you can imagine, all the federal requirements and state requirements to meet the needs of students with disabilities are pretty significant. So there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done. We are assessed on that compliance standpoint. We got a perfect score of 20 out of 20 on that, and students are performing. They're learning, they're doing extremely well on academic measures, a rating of 20 out of 20 on performance, 40 out of 40, 3 times in a row. Only 19 school divisions in the Commonwealth have received a rating like this, and we've done it now 3 times in a row. So just another indicator of the strength of our school division. And so I'm proud to celebrate as well that if you are a student in Goochland County, you have a greater likelihood of graduating on time in 4 years than any other student in this Commonwealth. You walk in the door as a freshman, 4 years later, you're going to graduate. 97% of our students do that. And so we are 5% above the state average when it comes to on-time graduation. So really proud of the work that we're doing at our high school, but ultimately this is something that happens in preschool. As we develop relationships with families and students and it grows, we understand students' needs. Those kids are walking across the stage, able to go to the best colleges and universities across this nation. And it's because of what we do in our schools to prepare them for success long after high school. So you cannot turn on the TV or read a newspaper article or get in your car and turn on the radio without hearing about public education. I've been in this business now, I guess, 24, 25 years, and this is the most attention that public education has ever received in the time that I've been in serving communities. But I will tell you, you can be proud of your school division. It's not just the metrics that I've showed this evening, it's what's happening day in and day out in classrooms. And so we continue to shine and continue to meet the needs of students and represent our community and do what's best for our community each and every day in the classroom. And so I have the pleasure of seeing this day in and day out. So I wanted to provide just a little bit of a glimpse with some pictures so that you can see what's happening in our classrooms. But our students are learning. I'll tell you what, they're engaged. They're involved in high-level academic experiences. They're getting experiences in all of the physical education courses that we offer, the arts, all the academic programs that we offer. And so school's happening. I will tell you that last year we thought was challenging, but this year is about 10 times tougher. And each and every day, our professionals are rising to the challenge to meet the needs of our students. And I'm extremely proud of what we're doing. And great things are happening in the classrooms. And again, it's a result of the work of each and every one of our employees, our food service professionals, our custodians, bus drivers, nurses, and we're doing school, not only during the course of the day, but we have evening activities, we have football games, we have plays and performances, our band doing their thing. We have our students involved in a lot of extracurricular and co-curricular activities. And so a lot of amazing things continue to happen across our school division day in and day out. So as Mr. Alvarez said, one of the major projects that are included in the bond referendum, should the financing be approved for that, is a new Goochland Elementary School. And so we're in the very early phases of doing the design on that work. We had a really amazing meeting last night with probably 25 or 30 of our residents. And it was really cool. We had a 6-year-old young lady who was there, and she drew a picture of what she wants her space to look like whenever she's a student at that school. And it was really great because ultimately it's her space. It's a space that we want designed for our students. It's going to prepare them extremely well for what they will go through in that space. And so very early phases of design, we welcome your feedback. We have a survey that's out on the market right now because we want this school to represent our community. We want it to be Goochland. We want it to be a part of our community. We want it to be open to everyone who is going to be a part of this amazing space. $38.7 million project. We're excited about what this design can be, reflective of the excellence of our school division, on time, under budget, a quality project that's going to last 75 years in this community, and one that will make us all proud. We have a dedicated website, and this is just a tentative time frame of what we may work through over the course of the next 2 years. Should the bond be approved, should all the approvals happen after that, we potentially could go to bid this summer, turning shovels September of next year and open in August of 2024 if everything happens according to plan. So real excited about that. Welcome your feedback, and certainly we will keep you involved throughout the process at future town halls, and we'll have, like I said, a dedicated website with pictures and all those kind of fancy things. But anyway, be proud of your school division. This is our school division. I just have the honor of serving as your superintendent. But as residents, we should be very proud of what we're doing. Great things are happening in the Goochland County Public Schools. So happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yeah, I will tell you, I think that our career and technical education programs are really the crown jewel of what we're doing programmatically. We have the only 2-year program for students who want to earn credentials in heavy equipment operating. We have a diesel mechanics program. We have culinary arts program. The cookies that are out here were prepared by our culinary arts students. Healthcare sciences, computer aided drafting, agricultural programs, business programs. We're expanding work-based learning opportunities for students. We have a part-time work-based learning coordinator who's serving in that role. And so we want students to take what they're learning in the classroom and apply that in an authentic setting out into the workforce so that they have the skills and abilities to make a seamless transition right into the workforce and be a productive worker. So a lot of great things are happening in CTE. Oh, thank you, Ms. Horn. Our new program, we are the only school division in the Commonwealth with an Academy for Sustainable Energy. We received a grant, an Academy for Sustainable Energy. So knowing that the future, some jobs are going to be out there for solar panel installation and wind turbine maintenance and everything that comes in sustainable energy, we're going to have students with a pathway of 4 years of coursework that will prepare them for the workforce in sustainable energy, the only school division in the state.
I know when I was on too many years ago, we planned on getting the students trained for jobs that weren't even invented,
Right.
that weren't even in the workplace.
Right.
And so fortunately, a lot of the students were able to go on to the community college, get their associates, and then go on to 4-year schools,
Yeah.
and took care of 2 years of their education.
Yeah.
So the vocational program in Goochland County is strong. And anybody who doesn't think it is, take a trip out there and look at all the students that are involved. I think at one time, 84% of the students at Goochland High School were taking some type of vocational program. Could have been at our age, it was home economics, but it was shop, home economics. All those things are being taught out there. It's great. It's a great program.
Yeah. So part of the bond referendum is taking our current structure, which is in a satellite location of the high school, and moving that on the physical site of the current high school and do a 30,000 square foot expansion. And what that allows us to do is to recruit better. As you can imagine, some students who are 15, 16, 17 years old, they may not want to go off site and take a class because their friends aren't there. So from a recruitment standpoint, we bring that on site, allow us to recruit a little bit better. Supervision will be improved, logistics. We don't have to get kids on a bus and go next door, and it's going to allow us to take our programs to the next level. So that's another part of the bond referendum that's being considered. Yes, sir.
I would like to just understand the 97% that you had on the screen earlier. How far back does that take the kids? I mean, obviously it's not the 97% isn't just the senior year, but how far back can you take it?
Yeah. So that on-time graduation is measured by when you walk in the door as a freshman, what percentage of students 4 years later are graduating? And we have 97% of our kids that walk in as a freshman, graduate on time 4 years later. The difference between 97% and 100% is about 2 or 3 students. My goal is to get to 100%. And I believe that we can do that because of just the strength of our program. But yeah, we're real close to having 100%.
As I said, I was just trying to understand. It's basically the kids entering high school and finishing high school. It does not go back, for example, to junior high or elementary school.
That's correct. That's correct. It's upon entry at high school. Yes, sir.
You were at 81% graduation rate. So in the 20 years, they've gone to 97%, and that's as good as anybody. When we look at like the city of Richmond, they're at a 79% on-time graduation rate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was not trying to be critical. I just like to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. Yes, sir. Mr. Lyle?
Is this on? Okay. Dr. Rayleigh, do you have an update for me on the move to give equal AP weighting to some of the agricultural classes? Some of the students, as you have been told by me and others perhaps, are not taking agricultural classes because they will damage or lower their overall GPA because they can't get a 5.0 on it because it's not AP rated. And I think you said you were meeting with staff the following morning after the last town hall.
Yes, some things did not happen. I was not able to make that meeting on Friday, so I've been out of town the last couple of days. It's on my to-do list to have a conversation with my assistant superintendent.
You won't be surprised when I ask again in the future.
We will definitely take that under advisement and consideration.
You're a great American. Thank you, sir.
Jonathan, thank you for that. But I think honestly, that is a great example of what makes Goochland schools great, is that sort of flexibility to hear from a constituent and a vested constituent and be able to turn around and perhaps change how we handle a program moving forward. Most school systems can't do that. And so I think that's a real valuable thing. We've got fantastic staff who have the ability to pull that off, by the way, but also the willingness of the community to be that sort of flexible. And so I think that's a real power for us. Thanks. Anyone else?
Any other questions? Dr. Rayleigh mentioned the cookies. We had 200. Anybody virtual that has a question? What I was going to say about the cookies is take 2 home, because if you take 1 and you eat it, you're going to go, oh, wow, I wish I had 2. They are delicious. When I saw them, I thought, my God, these are beautiful. But tasting them is even better. I actually had a few stolen while they were sitting in my office. Oh, shared, borrowed. Neil?
Mrs. is it Maynard? If you can go ahead and ask your question now virtually.
Oh, hi there. I was just hoping that we could talk about the balanced schedule a little bit, the new calendar. I'm not, this is my first chance being able to listen to anything about the new schedule.
I would be glad to turn it over to Dr. Rayleigh for more on the.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Maynard, do you have a specific question about that?
No, not really. I just wanted an overview.
Yeah, I'll give you a general overview, and the audience certainly can benefit from that. We're in the process of considering a concept related to a possibility related to what we're calling a balanced instructional calendar. Currently under review, considering a lot of feedback, and really essentially what a calendar like this would do is it takes the core 180 days, which we are required to do from a minimal standard, and it redistributes 180 days across the calendar a little bit differently. Essentially, it brings the end of a school year and the beginning of the school year a little bit closer together, still allows for a considerable summer break, although a little bit shorter. And then it builds in what we're calling intersessions at periodic and strategic breaks to allow for a different cadence to the year where you work hard for 9 weeks, a 2-week intercession, 9 weeks in the break. And what the intercessions allow us to do essentially is to expand our instructional opportunities upwards of 30 more instructional days throughout the course of the year. So as we recognize some of the needs of our students, it provides some additional time for us to teach kids upwards of 30 days, like I said, and it's certainly under consideration at this point in time. We have a survey that's on the street, and so we're gathering that feedback. It's conversations like this. We will have another conversation on the 26th, next Tuesday at Randolph Elementary School, and then a follow-up conversation on the 28th virtually. And so we're going to really dig deep on that. In addition to that, we're going to distribute a presentation that was done last night. We recorded a presentation on this, and we'll send that out publicly probably in the next day or two, where you have a lot more in depth. But I'm happy to talk with you offline, and we can certainly chat via telephone if you want to dig deeper on that.
26th is the next meeting.
26th at Randolph Elementary School at 6:30. At 28th, we have a virtual conversation. And then again, we're going to send out a presentation that was done last night. But happy to chat with you further via telephone if you'd like. Mr. Lyle?
I have not thought about the balanced schedule, but I have often thought it's a good idea to use a fixed asset like a building 12 months out of the year instead of just 8 or 9. How will that affect contracts with the teachers and other type of ongoing just operational costs? Are they going to drop because you're getting more value out of the fixed asset, or how would that work?
Yeah, there would be ongoing operational costs associated with transportation, food service, facilities. We'd be operating our facilities a little bit longer. And then some of the additional costs from personnel standpoint, the core would be handled with our contracts as they currently exist. And so there would not be a change to teacher contracts, but there would be additional costs associated with that. And ultimately, the school board would build that into any sort of appropriation provided by the supervisors.
Any other questions? Okay, so I would like to, before we break up, to thank Salem Church for allowing us to come. And Dominique in the back is a Goochland resident and a graduate of Jonathan's school. What's the school again, Jonathan? Bridgewater, not Virginia Tech, Bridgewater. So remember to take a cookie. And if you have any questions, my card is on this on the table here or outside. If you need to reach me for anything, please do so. I was very honored to be named interim administrator. I've told them not to rush, but they're getting there. So I probably won't be here for the next town hall. So it's nice meeting you all, and hope you have a really nice winter.
Well done, sir.